Now start NCERT chapter 2 Polynomial. In this chapter, previous class discussed relation the zeros of the polynomial, definition of zeros of the polynomial, two methods, find out the polynomial, two definition of the polynomial, find the zeros, factor method, graphical method. X coordinate of the intersecting point of the x-axis, graph of the polynomial intersect the x-axis. These points x coordinate called zeros of the polynomial by the graph. And factor method, find the zeros of the polynomial. Now today start find the zeros of the polynomial Px. Put Px equals to 0. Then factor of Px equals to 0. After each factor equals to 0 and find the value of variable x. Value of x is called zeros of the polynomial. These value of x satisfy this equation, then value of x called zeros of the polynomial. Example, find the zeros of polynomial Px equals to x square plus 5x plus 6. Solution, let Px equals to 0. Then x square plus 5x plus 6 equals to 0. Factor this quadratic polynomial. This polynomial quadratic polynomial, because degree of 2, then this polynomial is called quadratic polynomial. This polynomial factor x square factor x square plus 3x plus 2x plus 6 equals to 0. x plus 3 plus 2 x plus 3 equals to 0, x plus 2 x plus 3 equals to 0, x plus 2 equals to 0 or x plus 3 equals to 0. So this implies that x equals to minus 2 or x equals to minus 3. So this implies that minus 2 and minus 3 are zeros of these polynomial px. This method, factor method. Find the zeros of the polynomial px equals to x square plus 5x plus 6. Let px equals to 0. Find the zeros of polynomial. So put px equals to 0, then x square plus 5x equals to 6 equals to 0, or this quadratic polynomial with factor. These factors are available, x plus 2, x plus 3. So x plus 2 plus x plus 3 equals to 0. After each factor equals to 0, so x plus 2 equals to 0, x plus 3 equals to 0, x equals to minus 2, x equals to minus 3. So then value of x minus 2 and value of x minus 3 are zeros of these polynomial px. This method use the find out zeros of the polynomial. This syllabus find out the zeros of the polynomial for quadratic polynomial and cubic polynomial, but major important find the zeros of the quadratic polynomial. This method use factor method and method use graphical. Obviously use this method, indication, find out the graphical method, then use method graphical. Next topic, number of zeros. number of zeros of the polynomial. Number of zeros of polynomial equal to number of degree of the polynomial. Number of zeros of polynomial equal to number of degree of the polynomial. Second, number of zeros of the polynomial equal to number of intersect point number of intersects points of the graph of polynomial on the x-axis. On the axis, number of zeros of the polynomial equal to number of intersects points of the graph of polynomial on the x-axis. Graph of the polynomial intersect the x-axis number of times. Number of times intersect point of the graph of polynomial on the x-axis. For example, graph of px y equals to px. Graph of polynomial px intersect the x-axis. Intersect the x-axis are 3 points. Intersect x-axis these graph of polynomial 3 times. Then number of zeros are 3. This graph of polynomial y equals to px intersects the x-axis at 3 times, then number of zeros these polynomial are 3. Number of zeros of the polynomial equal to number of times intersects point of the graph of polynomial on the x-axis. For example, any polynomial graph. This graph intersect the x-axis 3 times. Then number of zeros. These polynomial are 3. This graph of polynomial y equals to px intersects the x-axis at 3 times. Then number of zeros these polynomials are 3, or number of zeros x coordinate of these intersecting points. Number of zeros intersecting points, number of zeros x coordinate of intersecting points of graph of polynomial on x-axis. These graph intersect x-axis 3 times, so this polynomial zeros are 3, or value of zeros x coordinate of these intersecting points. So zeros equals to x coordinate of intersecting points of x-axis by the graph of polynomial. Clear? Exercise 2.1, only these. Find out the number of zeros. Next, exercise 2.1. Question first. the graph of below. Find the number of zeros. Find the number of zeros of px in each case. First, given graph. X-axis, y-axis. Second, third, y equals to px, y equals to px, y equals to px. Fourth, x-axis, y-axis, y dash. Fifth, sixth,
बिना लाइट चाल गया जी
y equals to px, y equals to px. Your exercise 2.1, given question first. Find the number of zeros these given graph of polynomial px in each case. Discuss. Now, first, this graph intersect the x-axis. This graph not intersect the x-axis. This graph not intersect the x-axis, so this implies that number of zeros equals to 0. Number of zeros equals to 0 this case, because these polynomials graph not intersect the x-axis. This graph intersect the x-axis 0 times, then this graph number of zeros is 0. This graph intersect the x-axis only one point. number of zeros equals to 1. In this case, number of zeros equals to 1. Because these graph y equals to px intersect the x-axis only 1 points. Then number of zeros 1. Intersect only 1 points, so number of zeros, then number of zeros 1. Y equals to px. This case, graph of polynomial px intersect the x-axis 3 points. So number of times graph intersect the x-axis 3 times intersect the x-axis. So this figure, this graph of polynomial, number of zeros are 3. Number of zeros equals to 3. This figure intersect the x-axis 2 points. This figure intersect the x-axis 2 points. Then number of zeros equals to 2. This graph intersect the x-axis 2 times, then number of zeros equals to 2. This figure, number of zeros intersect the x-axis 1, 2, 3, 4. These graph of polynomial px intersect the x-axis 4 times, then number of zeros are 4. Number of zeros, this graph equals to 4. In this graph, number of intersecting 1, 2, 3. Number of zeros equals to 3. This graph of polynomial, number of zeros 3, because this graph intersect the x-axis 3 times. Graph of the polynomial intersect the x-axis how many times? These times are equal number of zeros. This graph not intersect the x-axis, so this implies that number of zeros is this polynomial, number of zeros 0. Graph of this polynomial intersect the x-axis 1 points, then number of zeros 1. Graph of these polynomial intersect the x-axis 3 times, then number of zeros 3. Graph of this polynomial intersect the x-axis 2 times, so then number of zeros equals to 2. Or this graph of polynomial intersect the x-axis 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, then number of zeros equals to 4. Or these graph of polynomial intersect the x-axis 1, 2, 3, then number of zeros equals to 3. The exercise of 2.1 only for one question. This question only find out number of zeros given figure, a given graph of given polynomial. So graph of these polynomials are given, then find out the number of zeros in this graph. These graph intersect is number of times of x-axis equal to number of zeros. So number of zeros of the polynomial equal to number of times graph of polynomial intersects the x-axis. So how many times graph intersect the x-axis? These times are equal number of zeros. This graph not intersect the x-axis, so number of zeros. This polynomial 0. This polynomial of graph intersect x-axis only one time, so this polynomial number of zeros 1. This polynomial graph intersect the x-axis 3 times, then number of zeros, this polynomial 3. This polynomial's graph intersect the x-axis 2 times, then number of zeros 2 times. The graph of the polynomial intersect the x-axis 4 times, then number of zeros 4. This polynomial of graph intersect the x-axis 1, 2, 3 times, then number of zeros 3. Clear? Next topic later.